Good morning and good afternoon to everyone. I hope the connection is strong enough and fast enough so you can hear me. Today I'm happy to host this webinar again after we have not had a webinar for 2 months. The last one we had in early April, and I'm happy that more and more people are joining in. I think we have, including myself, 5 people online for now. And today we're also welcoming another guest speaker, David from the UK. He will introduce himself a little bit later when he is presenting his part about his research. Probably you have read in the invitation the topics we will cover today. We will slowly get into the presentation and into the webinar. We'll see if some more people join in as we progress. And first of all, I would like to explain to you what we are going to do today. So as usual, these are the contents for today. Since we haven't been communicating via the webinar for the past 2 months, I would first like to hear some feedback from you. Probably a good question. Jesus, if anybody else has any problems to hear me, I hope the sound is smooth for everybody else, and I hope it gets better for you as well. You can please type quickly. Okay, thanks, Francis. If everybody can quickly type if the sound and the audio is transmitting well. Okay, cool. Perfect. So I hope Jesus it will get better for you as well. Let's move on with the content for today. After you have given us some feedback about the OEP so far, I will do an introduction into how to adapt games, as we are now approaching the next stage of the program. And then I will explain a bit more what we are going to do in the next 3 months and what we are going to focus on. And then I'm happy to give the stage to David O'Byrne. I actually don't know if I pronounced the name correctly, but David will be able to say his name properly later. So David will provide some information about his research project that he does a bit in the background, and today there is the opportunity so everybody can get to know what David is researching. And then we will wrap up the webinar with a final round of questions and answers, and I will give a summary about the tasks that you should complete in the next 4 weeks. Okay, then let's get right into the first point. First, I would really like to thank you for actively participating in the webinars and in the online education program in general. And it has been really great to see you growing, and it makes me very happy to see how you interact with each other, if on Facebook Workplace or here on the webinars. I'm happy to see your feedback on the Google feedback form and with the questionnaires. And I'm very excited to see how you also support each other. Although I wasn't online for the past 2 weeks, or I wasn't online very much, I didn't put anything in on Facebook Workplace. You are still posting videos and pictures and liking each other's posts. So that's how it should be, and that's very exciting. I want to congratulate you for that achievement, and it really shows that within these first 3 months you're taking more and more ownership of this course and of this program. So thank you very much for your contribution. But I also want to give you the stage, especially because we haven't been in touch through these webinars for the past 8 weeks. If you have any feedback or questions regarding the OEP that you would like to discuss now live as we are here on this webinar, they can be related to Facebook Workplace or to SSP or to the Google Feedback questionnaire, anything that you would like to discuss, please type your questions in the box on the bottom right. I'll give you a couple of minutes, 1 or 2 minutes to think about it and to give me your feedback, and then I will be hopefully able to answer your questions. Okay. Okay, cool. Lorik, that's a very nice question. Okay. Yeah, let me then quickly do something. I'll try to share my screen. I think that's the easiest thing to explain that, and then I will log into SSP. Let me quickly do that. It might take me a few seconds, and then we'll see if that works. Let me see what other questions are there. I have a question. I don't understand completely your question, Jesus. Okay. Okay. I hope you can understand me now, Jesus, or you can hear me. Can you please clarify the question with if I will make any adjustments in the sessions? Do you mean to your sessions or to what type of sessions? Okay. I think I would be able to share the screen now. Okay. Cool. So I hope everybody can see my screen now. I'll just quickly log into SSP and then I can explain what needs to be explained. Please let me know if you can't see my screen. Just logging into SSP. If you can't see my screen, please let me know. So what you can do to search for sessions, you can go to the tab that says Session Library. That's the second last tab. And when you then go in here, then you can search for certain games. So you can say the keywords, and I think that's what you meant, Lorik, where you can say an environment, for example, and then you can also, and then you can search and see what comes up. When you search in the session library, you search for the whole, for all of SSP. So everybody that has an account in SSP around the world will and has his game publicly made publicly accessible will be listed here. What makes probably more sense, because you said most of them are drills, because as I said, it will be SSP will list everybody who has an account with them. So it makes probably more sense to go to the tabs that says club sessions, because then you see only the games that are listed or entered within the club of coaches across continents. So those games that will be listed then are more likely to be games with a social impact. So you could now enter again environment as a keyword and then search for games. And now you can see the environment games with a social impact. So if you can see my screen now, there is a game from David Mulo, who comes from Kenya, who entered a game earlier this year about environmental game, The Sack Goes Around, or environmental games, handicap game, also from David. Elvis entered a game called Deborah for Health and Wellness and Her Environment. So there's different environment games now that you can find here. So that's basically all the games addressing environmental issues from the basically past 2 years. I hope that helps. I'm trying to see what is different between club session and session library. Yeah. Okay. So the difference between club session and session library is that club sessions, you will only see the sessions that have been entered by people who have an account with coaches across continents. So all of you have an account with coaches across continents. So you are part of the club called Coaches Across Continents. The session library is the whole library of Sports Session Planner. So if you compare it with a real life library where you can get books, it's a bit like you look once at, if you look at the session library, it's like seeing all the books that are in the library. If you look at the club sessions, you see only the books in one section, in the section called Coaches Across Continents. I hope that makes sense. So with the club sessions, you will only see the sessions that have been entered by Coaches Across Continents members. And you are one of them. I hope that makes sense. Okay, cool. I'll quickly stop my screen sharing. Okay, cool. I hope that makes sense. I'll see. Okay. Cool. Okay. Any other questions about SSP, Facebook Workplace, anything else you want to know? Okay, it seems like it helped a lot of you. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Jesus. I'll just quickly use Google Translator to figure that out. My Spanish is just too outdated. Yeah. Okay, let me try to do something. Jesus, I'll make you a moderator, and then you can probably try to verbally explain what you're talking about. Let's see if that works. I can't really understand your question. So if you can figure out how to activate your audio, then you can also speak. So we'll see if that works. If not, then we will have to postpone it for after the webinar, and I will answer the question on Facebook Workplace. Okay, any other questions? We will definitely get your answer, get your question answered, Jesus. So don't worry. Okay, I will slowly move on. If there's any more questions, please let me know. I will be able to also answer them during the webinar. Let's move on then to the second part, to the second topic, how to adapt the game. There's basically two ways to adapt games, the way we understand adaptations. So first, obviously, you would need to pick an existing game that you want to adapt. It can be a CAC game, or it can be from another resource. And second, the second step would be then that once you've picked the game, you can adapt the game by either, and that's now the two options, keep the setup of the game and address a different social issue. So when I talk about setup, that means you keep the rules, the equipment, the progressions, basically the conditions of the game, the arrangement of the game, you could also say, stays the same, but you address a different social issue. And the second option would be you keep the social issue of the game. So let's say the issue is alcohol and drug abuse, or HIV/AIDS, or environment, but you change the setup. So you take a common social issue that has been already existent, and then you just change the setup of the game. I will explain a bit further on the next slides what that exactly means. So first, let's focus on the first option. So if you decide to keep the setup of the game but address a different social issue, then that means then that you first identify the problem or social issue you want to address. So instead of, let's say it was a game about environment, you say, I want this game to address a social issue of, for example, social inclusion. Okay, so you change that. And then, oh, what was that? No, sorry. Need to go back to this. Okay. I think that was Jesus. Okay. So then the second option would be that you would consider the solutions or alternatives for that social issue that you want to address. So for example, when you address social inclusion, it could be that you want to address the importance of how to develop empathy for disabled people, or you want your players to think about ways how they can include disabled people. So that would be then the second step, because we always want the solutions and alternatives be represented, be visible in the game, and that's the third step. So we don't want to just play a game and then talk about the social issue. We want it to be visible in the game. So when it comes to social inclusion, it could mean that some people are playing blindfolded, which would probably help them to develop empathy and understanding of what it means to be blind, how people feel, how they are restricted, what it means to be blind. So they actually experience this difference in the game. Okay, let's do it with one example, a very specific example. The example is that we would take now, for example, the game of pair soccer. I'm sure many of you are recalling that game from the May curriculum. And so the original setup is that you would just play in pairs a normal game of football. So you would keep this setup, you would not change anything, it would still be people are playing in pairs, but now you would address a different social issue. You could address the social issue of social inclusion instead of cooperation or teamwork. Which are the common social issues or topics, not necessarily social issues, but topics you can address with pair soccer. So it's a fun game where you focus on cooperation, teamwork, and so on. But now you can make it a game about social inclusion. So you keep the players in pairs, but one person in each pair needs to be blindfolded or needs to close their eyes. If you don't have enough material to make people blindfolded, then you can also just agree on a rule and say one of the two will close their eyes and will play with closed eyes. And then you can even make a progression and say that only the blindfolded player is allowed to touch the ball. And then you can think about questions you can ask your players, and then you play the game. So it sounds pretty simple, I think, but that's the whole idea for adapting games. So you would keep the setup, and now you would make out of this fun game that focuses on cooperation a game about social inclusion that builds empathy for people who are blind. Okay, any questions so far? Otherwise, I will move on to the second option. Do you have any questions? Please type them at any point. Okay, makes sense. Thank you for the feedback. The next option would be that, as I mentioned earlier, you keep the social issue of the game. So it would be, for example, alcohol and drug abuse, HIV/AIDS, child rights, whatever, but you change the setup. And for that, you need to decide how you want to change the setup. So do you want to add balls or take balls away, change the size or the material of the that you want to use, the teams, the taggers? There are so many different things that you can change on the setup. We will also again do it on an example a bit later. Or you can also change the rules. So you can introduce that, like, they are not allowed to run, they're only allowed to walk, or one team is now allowed to run and the other one not, or the number of touches is limited or unlimited, or like you can change the rules of the game in any way you can imagine. And then you also need to decide about progressions to make the game more challenging and to create more conflict or to make the solutions visible in the game. So that can be also, we always can think of progressions in games where the solution or where the problem becomes more and more evident and more visible. So let's take a look for another example. I have again chosen a game from the May curriculum. It was the game called Drogba for Gender Equity. I hope everybody still remembers. I have chosen the games from the past curriculum, so it might be still most present for many of you. So on the left-hand side, you can see the screenshot from the Drogba for Gender Equity game. So it was the game with the 4 different squares with 2 teams, and each team at the beginning has 1 ball and needs to try to dribble and pass through all 4 squares as quickly as possible. And each of the square represents 1 area where boys and girls, men and women should have equal opportunities, should be equal. So you can, if you have very good eyes, then you can probably see that there's like next to the 4 squares, it's written education, health, income, and rights. So so these are now 4 examples what the 4 squares could represent. Okay, so now you would decide, okay, I want to keep the social issue, I want to play a game about gender equity, and I want to play a game about the areas in life where women and men should be equal. Okay, but you would now change the setup. So you would not have 4 squares, but you would, instead of that, create 2 end-line zones. So now if you look at the square on the if you look at the square on the right, if you look at the screenshot, you can see that there is these 2 red lines which basically mark the end lines or the end line zones. And now the game changes slightly. You have 2 teams who play against each other, and you can score by passing the ball into the end line zone, and then another player, here indicated as with the yellow arrow, needs to touch the ball in the end line zone, or somebody can simply dribble into the end line zone himself or herself with the ball. And the person who receives the ball in the end line zone needs to shout the place where girls and boys should be equal. So now, instead of having 4 squares like here, you have an end line zone, and it becomes basically a scoring game, a game of football with 2 scoring zones on each side. So that would be an example for the second option of how to adapt a game. Any questions about that? Yeah, perfect, Lorik. Yeah, that happens to me as well. When I play a game and then you think of, oh yeah, I could play this game this and this way. Yeah, definitely. That could be something. Ideally, you would have a pen and a small piece of paper, and then you can just quickly write it down, make a note, and then think about that more after the session. But yeah, no, that's great. That's how it should be. That's a good sign if those ideas come while you play. Okay. Then what happens next is after you have adapted your games, so you have, as I explained, chosen one of these 2 options, then it's important to implement this game. So you would play the game with your players, try it out and see if it works, and then reflect on the game and make adjustments if necessary. Not always it will be, everything will work the first time you try it. And then after you have thought about the adjustments, you play the game again. So I basically want to encourage you to practice these games and make them better. They don't need to be perfect the first time you implement them. Okay. And then a few points of what does not count as an adaptation. So there are certain things that we don't really call adaptations. That would be more like we call it variations. So the following adjustments we would not really count as adaptations. That would be, for example, if you just change the size of the pitch. So instead of playing on a pitch that is 10 by 15 meters, saying like, oh yeah, I changed now the game, now we play on a pitch like 15 by 30 meters. That's not really an adaptation if you make the pitch bigger or smaller. It also doesn't count as an adaptation if you change the number of taggers and say, next time I will play with 5 taggers instead of 3. Or I just added 2 more safe spaces. Instead of 2, I have now 4 safe spaces. Or the number of players who are representing condoms in a HIV prevention game. Or the number of balls that you use in the game. That doesn't really count as an adaptation. Or if you switch between playing with hands or feet or vice versa, that is also not considered as an adaptation. And one last point is if you simply replace objects representing something in the game. So you are using a ball instead of a rock, and it represents the same thing. It's just a different object. That also doesn't count as an adaptation. If the ball or the rock represents something different in the game, then that can be an adaptation, because then you change the social issue, then you change the topic that gets addressed. But by simply replacing objects that remain the same meaning, that is not called or considered as an adaptation. Okay. Okay, how about, for example, changing adulthood to dreams and future career? Yeah, definitely. Yeah. That could be considered. It would then, simply like if you change just simply the term of adulthood and say this represents adulthood, but now no, let's rather talk about what are our dreams and about our future career. Yeah, that would be an adaptation. Yeah, I would consider that an adaptation, because you change the meaning of something in the game. Some place or some object or something in the game represents something different. Yeah, that's considered an adaptation. Okay, that would be all about the adaptation and the introduction into adaptation. If there's more questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I will be move on to the content and the timeline for the next 3 months in a bit greater detail. Okay, so you can see again the same screen we had in the introductory webinar. Now we are already in the second stage we call adapt, where you, as I have already explained in great length and detail, will focus on adapt games and activities. Okay, how is that going to look like? So here's now again a detailed overview. We are now in the month of June, and we will focus over the next 3 months on adapting games. So CAC will again, we will run 3 webinars in the next 3 months. I've decided to be also in more regular contact now over the next 3 months with you via these webinars. So we will have a webinar in July and one in August. Even if they are just short for 30 minutes, that's also fine. But I want to give you the opportunity to come online once a month and be live in touch with each other. And then we will obviously give you feedback about your adaptations that you have entered on SSP. We'll provide a feedback questionnaire, and we will be for you available via email, workplace, and Skype. So this will remain more or less the same over the next 3 months. The feedback questionnaire for May has not been released yet. It will be released next week. So don't worry about the feedback for May for the last months. You will be able to give us more feedback next week once the questionnaire will be ready, and then we'll continue producing questionnaires and feedback questionnaires for the next months. What are your tasks now for the next 3 months? So for this month, I want you to adapt 2 existing games. So you take 2 games that either CAC games or other games you know that you use within your organization, and you adapt them to another social issue or by changing the setup. And then you please need to enter this adapted game on SSP, and for now keep the settings on private. You don't need to worry so much about it because the normal setup is that the games are kept in a private mode. The reason for that is that we would like to first see the games and give you some feedback, and then we can share them with everybody a bit later this month. Then you obviously also need to fill in the feedback form that we will provide next week, and then obviously also at the end of June and so on. And please continue check Facebook Workplace regularly for updates. I think many of you are doing that, which is great, but please keep that up because most of our information and most of our invitations and so on are posted on Facebook Workplace. And then on field, you please always need to adapt implement your adaptations. So this month you would also then play the 2 adaptations that you have created, that you have developed, you would implement on field. In July, you would then, the difference in July is that you would choose 2 adapted games from a different participant. So you would not need to adapt 2 games yourself, but you would just choose 2 adaptations from somebody else and then implement them in your community and with your players, and then give feedback to this person about the games. So I want then in July that you are basically getting more in touch with each other and give feedback. The questionnaire in July will also help you to give feedback to each other. We'll still figure out a way that the feedback can be available to everyone. Okay, and then in August, it will be basically a combination of June and July, where you will adapt 2 more games, but where you will also choose 2 adaptations from another participant. And then you will basically implement 4 adaptations, 2 from your own ideas and 2 from somebody else. Okay, so that's the simple and straightforward, basically, content and work for the next 3 months. If you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, we will move on now to David's presentation. So hopefully everything will work out now, and David will be able to speak to you soon. I can already see his face. Okay.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Perfect. Yes, I can hear you, and I hope everybody else can hear you as well, David.
Great. So it's my pleasure to speak with you all today. Sorry, what was that, Marcus? Okay, I'll continue on. So it's
I just said I will mute my microphone and leave the stage to you, David. Thanks.
Okay, sorry, thank you. So it's my pleasure to speak with you all today. I just want to introduce myself, tell you a little bit about who I am, the research that I'm doing with Coaches Across Continents as a partner, and also invite you as participants in Coaches Across Continents online educational platform to take part in my research. So about me, as I mentioned, my name, Marcus did pronounce it correctly. It is David O'Byrne. I'm from Ireland originally, but I'm currently based in the United Kingdom at Loughborough University. So you can see on Google Maps there that it's right in the centre of England. My research is most broadly on what we call using sport for development and peace. So we use the acronym SDP, but most of you will recognize that there's a lot of different phrases and terminology for this. So it's very similar to what Coaches Across Continents call using sport for social impact. So why I'm partnering with Coaches Across Continents is because of their reputation and excellence in using sport for social impact, but more particularly for their ability to bring together people from all over the world to improve the use of sport as a tool for social development. So today is just one example of the webinars that they run to bring together people to share their experiences. So very briefly, for if you have not heard of Loughborough University, which I can understand given that it's in the middle of England and I hadn't heard of it myself before I started at Loughborough. Loughborough's main reputation was for working with athletes, professional athletes and Olympians in basically trying to make them and their sports performance better. Whereas the group that I work with in the university is very much focused on improving society through using sport to meet specific social goals. Next slide. So, more details about my research and why I'm here. So as I've mentioned, most broadly, why I do what I do is because I'm trying to get a better understanding of how people are using sport in their own local communities to tackle their own local issues. I also want to understand the benefits of using sport as opposed to using other tools or not using sport but still trying to face the same social goal, and what challenges there are in using sport for development. I'm also particularly interested in how knowledge moves through sport for development. So how we transfer knowledge as people to each other and through organizations we work with or for and people we partner with. So by knowledge, I mean not just content in terms of what you learn in terms of how something is done, but also how we learn from each other in terms of looking at how people act, the processes that we go through, the practices that we see as normal or right, and essentially the way we see the world, our worldview. I think working with diverse people is the best way of seeing the world from a different way or a different lens and opening up your view of how things can be done. So why I'm doing it? As I mentioned, when you're working with different people, the diversity that happens when activists are sharing knowledge, I think it makes any process better, but particularly I'm focused obviously on using it to help us use sport to make societies better. And why I'm here, as I've mentioned, it's predominantly because Coaches Across Continents and this online education platform that we're all a part of is a great example of people coming together to share knowledge, and it's one of the first initiatives in the world that have managed to bring together people using sport for development in a regular way over the year. Other examples of how we share knowledge could be with different organizations you've worked with or for, or other organizations or people you've partnered with and learned from in other countries or continents. Just another slide here. So how you can get involved. So I'm going to be continuing to participate in Coaches Across Continents education platform for the rest of the year until you guys graduate from the class. If you wish to take part in my research with coaches across continents, then that would be great. And what we'll be doing is either you can reach out to me. I put my contact details on here. So that's my university email address. That's my phone number, so you can contact me on WhatsApp. Or I am also on Coaches Across Continents Facebook Workplace. So you can contact me if you would like to take part. But so I'd love to speak with as many of you as possible. But then going forward, what I would like to do is, if there's a smaller group of people who are happy to continue to talk with me throughout the year, is perhaps set up a forum where we could speak over Skype for once a month, or whatever platform is easiest to speak over for different people. Obviously, I know this Skype can be tricky with internet connectivity, but we can talk through chat or email or WhatsApp or whatever works for you guys. I've also spoke with Marcus about how perhaps further down the line in the next couple of months I could present a little bit more beyond my research, what other research is going on, so that you all can see what research is going on at universities on sport for development, and try and take some of the learnings that are suggested from universities into your own work, and also give me feedback on what you think is doable or not. Essentially trying to bring together the knowledge that's being created in universities about this sector, but then also the realities that you all deal with in working with kids and social issues in your own communities. So that is the end of my presentation. I promised I wouldn't take up much of your time today, but thank you all for listening, and hopefully we get a chance to speak in the near future and continue to work together. I'm just looking at the chat that's come up while I was speaking. So yeah, Larique, I am on OEP Workplace, so happy to speak with you there, or you have my other contact details too. And Jesus, I know you're having problems with audio, but definitely if you want to talk to me on any other platform, or we can arrange to speak in the coming weeks and months as well. Okay, Marcus, I can mute my audio unless there's any more questions, and let you take back the mic if that works for you.
Yeah, thank you much. It's been great, very informative and very helpful. Yeah, listening to you makes me excited again to take that further, and I think that's also one of the advantages of having now for the next 3 months basically regular webinars, which I think will give us enough time and space to get deeper into the topic of sport for development research. I'm very excited to take this partnership and cooperation between you and the Loughborough University and us Coaches Across Continents and this program to the next stage and dig a bit deeper. And it seems like that some of the people who are listening to the webinar already showing great interest. So yeah, let's talk about that more. And one other thing I wanted to mention, that this presentation will also be available, both of the presentations. I'm sure that David is also happy to share that presentation with everyone. So I will make it available. So if you have missed David's contact details, if you want to have his WhatsApp number, or want to see his email address again, and don't worry, it will be sent to you, and I'll make it available on Facebook Workplace and also via email, so everybody can look through the slides again at his or her own pace. Okay, perfect, wonderful. Thank you again, David, and always welcome on these webinars. I'm always happy if somebody else speaks and it's not just my voice. Perfect. Okay. So that was quick overview for that. We are coming to an end for that webinar today. So please type any final questions or comments you have for this webinar. Then we'll be able to answer them. Even if they are directed to David, please don't hesitate to type them. David is still available, still a moderator, so he can switch on his microphone at any point and also answer your questions. Otherwise, I would briefly go through the points of the most important points for this month that we need to cover and that I would like you to complete. So after the introduction of how to adapt games, I would like you now to adapt two existing, ideally CSC games, but it can basically be any sport for social impact games, following the suggestions and the instructions I have been given in this webinar. And then you implement the adapted games with your team or students to give you feedback about how the game works and if it goes well and works well. And then please enter the adapted games into your SSP account so we can all see the games as well. First, obviously, it will be Charlie and myself to give you some feedback. And we are also still figuring something out how to best share these games on SSP. There are some technical issues at the moment that we still need to figure out. So I hope to have some progress in the next 1 or 2 weeks on that. And then hopefully, and then hopefully we will be able to sort that out. Once you have entered it on SSP and you want us to immediately look at it, please inform Marcus, like myself, or Charlie via email or Skype or Facebook Workplace. Then we can look at it and give you feedback immediately. We'll also keep on checking SSP, but yeah, if you want immediate feedback, please let us know. Then we will get back to you as soon as possible. And then please also in this month answer the feedback questionnaire for May and June that will be provided on Facebook Workplace. So the link will be posted on Facebook Workplace again, and then you can just fill in your answers in the questionnaire. We will have another webinar scheduled in about a month between July 3rd and 7th. In that week, sometime, we will have another webinar. And to answer your question, Lorik, yeah, there is another date on June 8th, but that is incorrect. I think a mistake happened when Charlie set up the webinar. I think he entered a time that it was not correct. So the webinar happens now and in the afternoon. I'm not sure what time it is in Armenia, but it's basically 5 hours from now. It starts again, and it will be exactly the same webinar. So if you've participated now, there's no need to come online again later. It will be exactly the same topics and the same slides. So you're all good to go now. Okay, if there's no other questions, then I would like to say thank you for your participation and for engaging in the discussions. And Jesus, I would like to quickly connect with you to find out what your question was. I'm sorry that I didn't really understand what you were about to ask. So if we can connect via Facebook Workplace probably, or Skype, that would be great. Okay, yeah, I wish you all have a nice day, have a good evening. If you are further east on this planet Earth, then you're probably approaching the evening already. So yeah, thank you for joining in, and we will talk again in early July. Thank you very much. Goodbye.